The shouting hit me before I even reached the dock. 40 strangers packed onto my grandfather's marina like they owned it. Music blasting, smoke rising from a grill, kids sprinting across boards my family built by hand. And at the center stood Marlene Ashford, HOA president, waving a microphone like she was hosting a summer festival. "Community property," she screamed the moment she saw me. But the thing is, this land was mine, purchased decades before her precious HOA ever existed. I should have turned around. I should have walked away. Because what happened next wasn't just trespassing. It was the opening shot of a war. I didn't inherit the marina because I deserved it. I inherited it because I was the last one left. My grandfather, Henry Dalton, was the kind of man who could fix a boat engine with one hand and flip pancakes with the other. He built Dalton Marina back in the early 82nds, long before Ashwood Lake became a desirable waterfront community, with glossy brochures and beige-colored houses, all lined up like obedient soldiers. Back then, this place was nothing but pine trees, muddy trails, and the quiet slap of water against the dock. My childhood summers were spent here, bare feet on sun-warmed boards, fishing lines in the water, and my grandfather's deep laugh echoing across the lake. When he got sick, he called me to his bedside, pressed a tarnished brass key into my palm, and said, "Daniel, this place stays in the family. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I thought he was being dramatic. Turns out, he was being prophetic. I moved back to Ashwood Lake a year ago, partly out of nostalgia, partly because I'd grown tired of city noise and digital deadlines. I worked remotely as a technical writer, spent afternoons repainting the boathouse, and drank my morning coffee on the same dock my grandfather built board by board. It was quiet, peaceful, predictable, at least until the HOA got involved. I knew about HOA politics before moving in: yard height rules, mailbox colors, recycling reminders. Annoying, but manageable. What I didn't know was that Ashwood Lake's HOA president, Marlene Ashford, ran the neighborhood like a personal empire. Her reputation preceded her. Charismatic, sharp-tongued, always wearing a blazer even in July, and absolutely obsessed with the idea of community cohesion. Most people adored her. Those who didn't kept quiet. I learned quickly why. The first red flag happened 3 weeks after I moved in. I found a glossy flyer taped to my front door. "Summer kickoff at the community marina. Everyone welcome." The problem? The picture on the flyer was my dock. I called the HOA office to correct the mix-up. Their response was cheerful, dismissive. "Oh, must have been an old file photo. We'll update it, no worries." They didn't update it. Then came the polite but intrusive questions from neighbors. "So, you're the new caretaker of the community dock? Or the more passive-aggressive? Technically, we all kind of share that space, right?" I corrected people gently at first. "No, the marina's private property. My grandfather purchased it in 1983. Most shrugged. Some frowned. A few exchanged glances like I'd spoken blasphemy. Then came the morning in June. I woke to the sound of laughter, too loud, too early, too close. When I looked out the window, my stomach dropped. The gate sign I'd installed, "Private property, no trespassing," lay crushed in the dirt. And the dock, well, it looked like someone had transplanted a 4th of July block party right onto it. Tents, coolers, speakers, beach chairs, a grill smoking so hard it fogged the shoreline. And at the center of it all stood Marlene, wearing a sun hat the size of a satellite dish, a microphone in hand, greeting neighbors like she was running for mayor. Kids were cannonballing into the water. Adults were eating on picnic tables someone had hauled onto my land. It didn't feel real. By the time I reached the gate, Marlene spotted me, smiled like we were old friends, and announced loudly, "Oh, look, Daniel's here to join the celebration." That was the moment things shifted. That smile, it wasn't friendly. It was a warning. She had already decided the marina belonged to the community, and she had absolutely no intention of giving it back. What I didn't know yet, what I couldn't have known, was just how far Marlene was willing to go to take it. The moment Marlene shouted, "Community property," into that microphone, everything inside me tightened like a rope pulled too fast, too hard. But I kept my voice steady when I told her everyone needed to leave. I expected shock, maybe an argument. What I didn't expect was laughter. Not nervous laughter, not confused laughter, but the pointed, smug kind that tells you a story has already been written, and you're just now realizing you're the villain in it. One woman actually patted my arm. "Sweetie, it's been community access for years. Maybe you're just new." New? My family had owned the marina since before her house was a dirt lot. I took out my phone and started documenting everything. People, banners, the crushed sign on the ground. And that's when Marlene's smile faltered for the first time. Not by much, just a hairline crack, but I saw it. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she didn't like that I was collecting proof. I gave everyone 10 minutes to clear out. Marlene gave them 10 seconds to ignore me. "Stay right where you are," she chirped into the microphone. "We have every right to be here." I called the sheriff's non-emergency line. The dispatcher sounded bored, borderline annoyed. "No weapons involved?" "No," I said. "Just trespassing. We'll send someone when available." Translation: don't expect help anytime soon. While I waited, I opened my laptop and pulled up the county property appraiser's website. 5 minutes later, the truth glowed on the screen like a beacon. Parcel number 114333209, Dalton Marina, private property. Purchased, 1,983. No easements. No public access rights. Not a single shred of legal standing for Marlene's circus. But when Officer Decker finally arrived, he barely glanced at my paperwork before rubbing his eyes like I'd interrupted his nap. "Mr. Dalton," he said, tone dripping with tired patience, "this looks like a civil dispute. OA versus homeowner. I can't remove them unless there's danger." Danger? There were toddlers playing on a dock older than their grandparents. Marlene swooped in with a binder big enough to qualify as a weapon. She flipped to a page she'd highlighted in neon yellow, "Waterfront access for community enrichment." It wasn't even real. Not legally. But the officer had no idea. "I recommend you take this up with the HOA board," he said, walking away. And just like that, authority left with him. Marlene leaned in close as she passed me. "You should have just let us use it, Daniel. Now you've created division." "Oh, division?" She turned my home into a theme park, and I was the one causing division? The party continued like I wasn't even there. Music, laughter, a grill, flare-up so big someone cheered. I walked back home feeling like the ground under my feet had shifted without warning. That was the first wave. The next morning, things got worse. I woke to a friend's text. Have you seen the neighborhood Facebook group?" I didn't even have Facebook, but screenshots poured in. Marlene had posted photos from the party families smiling, kids swimming, couples drinking lemonade with the caption, "Yesterday's community picnic was beautiful. Sadly, one resident is trying to restrict access to our shared marina." Shared. Hundreds of comments followed. Selfish. Entitled. "Oh, my kids grew up there. Kick him out of the HOA." One person claimed I'd threatened children. Another said I'd harassed families. Neither had ever spoken to me in their lives. By noon, my email inbox was a graveyard of canceled meetings from clients who suddenly needed to pause our project. My copywriting work relied heavily on local connections, and Marlene knew it. When a HOA wants to break you, they don't go for your door, they go for your reputation. The vandalism started quietly. My mailbox spray-painted, "Community First," a scratch down the side of my truck. Flower beds trampled. The sheriff took a report, but the look in his eyes was the same as the day before. "You probably brought this on yourself." By midweek, neighbors I'd waved to for months crossed the street to avoid me. The isolation wasn't an accident. It was strategy. That was wave 2. On Thursday evening, my doorbell rang. Mr. Calloway, the older man I'd seen at the dock, stood on my porch, hat in hand. His eyes were tired but sharp. "Mind if I come in?" he asked. In my living room, with stacks of documents spread out like battle plans, he finally told me the truth. He'd been around since the neighborhood was nothing but dirt roads and big promises. He'd known my grandfather. He'd watched him negotiate with the original developers. And he remembered word for word the clause stating the marina would remain private forever. Forever. Not until an HOA president decided she wanted a personal trophy. Then he leaned forward. "Marlene's wanted the marina for years," he whispered. "Homes sell for more with water access. She's a realtor. Her husband is the contractor the HOA uses." He let that sink in. "She's trying to convert your property into community space because it raises everyone's home value. And when they sell, she gets the commission." The pieces fell into place like a lock clicking open after years of rust. He handed me a list of names: a property rights attorney, a former planning commissioner, a county clerk who remembered my grandfather. "You're not crazy," he said. "You're not wrong. You're just fighting someone who knows how to control a crowd." After he left, I looked through my window at the marina, my marina, and saw 3 kids launching kayaks like it was a rental business. I snapped a photo. Another timestamp. Another trespass. Minutes later, An envelope slid under my door. HOA violation notice. 5 cents per day for unauthorized signage. They were now fining me for putting no trespassing signs on land I owned. I actually laughed. A short, humorless sound. Because they'd made a mistake. A big one. Every threat, every lie, every fine. It was all evidence, all breadcrumbs leading back to Marlene, and I was done defending. It was time to go on the offensive. The night of the HOA meeting felt like walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been whispered in the hallways. 2 hours before the doors opened, I arrived early with 3 boxes, 50 printed evidence packets, my laptop, and a backup flash drive in case someone accidentally unplugged the projector. The community center smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner calm, almost comforting. A liar's dream. By the time people arrived, the energy changed. Whispers. Side eyes. A few thumbs pointed my direction, like I was a zoo exhibit. Marlene strutted in 20 minutes late, wearing a red blazer bright enough to warn ships at sea. She hugged her supporters like a politician at a fundraiser, smiling wide, teeth perfect, eyes dead. When she saw me, her smile tightened. "Let's keep this respectful tonight, Daniel," she said loudly, projecting innocence for her audience. "Respect begins with truth," I said. Her jaw twitched. At 7 p.m. sharp, she slammed her gavel like she was calling a royal court to order. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight we address the marina situation and take a community vote." A vote. She wasn't just trying to steal my property, she wanted applause for it. I stood before she could continue. Point of order. HOA bylaws grant homeowners the right to present evidence prior to any vote. I'm invoking that right. Some people booed. Others leaned forward curious. The tension felt like a held breath. Marlene forced a smile. "Fine, 10 minutes. I connected my laptop. The projector hummed to life. Slide 1. County survey map. Parcel 11433209 highlighted in red. My marina clearly separate from HOA property. "This," I said, "is who legally owns the marina." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Slide 2. My grandfather's 1,980 deed. The words fee simple absolute glowed across the room. No shared rights, no HOA claims, no easements. Ever. People flipped through the packets I distributed. Some frowned, some looked stunned. Marlene rose from her seat. "Paperwork can be interpreted many ways." I clicked to slide 3. County clerk letter. "Marina remains private property. No HOA rights recorded." "Not interpreted," I said. "Confirmed." A few gasps. A man in the front muttered, "Wait, then why did she say?" I clicked again. Slide 4. The email. Subject, Marina Strategy. From Marlene Ashford. It was the message the HOA vice president had secretly given me, the smoking gun. I read it aloud. "If we establish continuous use this year, the adverse possession clock starts. We need public events, photos, witnesses saying we always used it." The room detonated. Shouts. People standing. Someone yelled, "She planned it?" Marlene's face drained of color. "That email is out of context." I raised my voice over the chaos. "You tried to fabricate a false history so you could justify taking land you knew wasn't yours." I clicked to the final slide. Slide VC. Fraudulent invoices. $76,000 paid to her husband's contracting company for marina repairs. I highlighted the photos beneath. Identical dockboards from 5 years ago. No repairs. No upgrades. Nothing. $76,000, I said slowly. Taken from HOA funds for work that never happened. Silence. Then the HOA vice president stood. "As acting treasurer," he said, voice steady, "I can confirm these charges were approved by Marlene without board consent. There are no receipts, no bids, no documentation." Marlene spun toward him. "You traitor." "And," he continued louder now, "I've forwarded everything to the county district attorney." A deputy in the back nodded. He'd been watching the entire presentation. The crowd erupted. "Vote her out. She lied to all of us. She stole our money. She tried to steal his property." Marlene scrambled for her gavel. "This meeting is adjourned." "No," the vice president said. "This meeting is just beginning." He motioned for a vote. Hands shot up like rockets, row after row. "Majority reached," he announced. "Effective immediately. Marlene Ashford is removed as HOA president." Marlene froze, mouth open, chest heaving. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You'll all regret this." She shoved past chairs, stormed out, and the door slammed behind her hard enough to rattle the windows. For a moment, the room was utterly still. Then applause, soft at first, then louder, rolling across the room like a tide. I exhaled for the first time in weeks. It wasn't victory, not yet. But for the first time, the truth had a microphone, and the crowd was finally ready to hear it. The meeting ended in a way I don't think anyone expected. People filed out with stunned faces, whispering to each other like they'd just walked out of a courtroom drama instead of a community center. I drove home in silence, hands still shaking from adrenaline. For the first time in weeks, the dock outside my window looked like what it had always been mine. Not a battleground, not a stage, just the place my grandfather built and trusted me to protect. 2 days later, the county auditor requested the HOA's full financial records. A week after that, I got a call from the district attorney's office. It was surreal hearing an investigator say the words, "ongoing criminal review," about a woman who, up until a month ago, was organizing potlucks and decorating the neighborhood entrance for Christmas. By the end of the month, 3 charges were filed: theft of HOA funds, fraudulent invoices, and tampering with property records. Her husband's contracting company got hit with civil penalties and a statewide contract ban. When the story hit local news, her face was on the evening broadcast. She didn't even try to fight it, just quietly accepted a plea deal. 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, restitution to the HOA. The woman who once shouted, "community over everything," packed up her house at dawn and was gone before most residents woke up. I watched the U-Haul roll away from my kitchen window while drinking my morning coffee. It didn't feel triumphant. It just felt finally over. The HOA transformed faster than I thought possible. The vice president, now the acting president, asked me to join the board, but I declined. I didn't want to sit in meetings debating mulch colors. What I did want was guardrails, so I offered to serve as an advisor. Together, we drafted new policies: transparent budgets, live-streamed meetings, competitive bidding for every contract, and strict language, ensuring no HOA could ever claim private property without written consent from the owner. Every vote passed unanimously. It felt like the neighborhood was collectively exhaling, finally free from the pressure most didn't realize they'd been under. Once the legal dust settled, I focused on the marina. After months of being at the center of a war, it needed repairs, honest ones, not imaginary ones billed on fraudulent invoices. I hired a crew and stood beside them most mornings as they replaced boards, reinforced railings, and updated the old electrical panel. $25,000 out of my pocket, but every hammer strike felt like reclaiming something stolen. Inside the boathouse, I built a small display: photos of my grandfather, the original deed sealed behind glass, and an old brass key he'd given me when he could barely speak. A small plaque underneath read, "Stewardship is earned, not taken." Neighbors who once avoided me started showing up with cookies, apologies, and awkward explanations about believing the wrong person. I didn't blame them. Marlene had been good at spinning stories, and most people wanted to trust their HOA president, not imagine she was committing fraud in broad daylight. One woman broke down crying on my driveway, saying she was ashamed of the comments she'd posted. I told her the truth: everyone gets fooled sometimes. What matters is what they do after the truth comes out. Ironically, once everything calmed down, I wanted people to enjoy the lake again. The water had always been part of this community's heartbeat. So I created a guest access program, 4 families per week, with a simple set of rules and an online request form, and people treated it with respect. For the first time, the marina was shared in the way my grandfather intended: voluntarily, respectfully, not through entitlement or manipulation. The first family to visit was a father and daughter who used to fish with my grandfather decades ago. They stood at the water's edge quietly, taking it in. "Feels like home again," the father said. His voice cracked a little. A year after the meeting, I sat on the dock at sunset, with the brass key turning warm in my hand. The lake glowed orange, the boards beneath me solid and new. A kid from down the street wandered over and asked if I could teach him how to fish because his dad worked late. I told him to come back Saturday morning and bring a pole. He grinned and sprinted off. Watching him go, I realized something my grandfather understood long before I did. A boundary isn't meant to keep people out, it's meant to teach them how to enter the right way. The marina will always be private property, but that doesn't mean it can't be meaningful to the community, so long as respect, not control, is the foundation. And now, finally, it is.